All right, another round of breaking news coming in from Moscow, where Kremlin has said that everything depends on what Iran needs and Russia is ready. That Russia is ready to assist Iran. Everything depends on what Iran wants and tells us. That's Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, who has been quoted as saying that we have offered our mediation efforts, we have stated our position. This is one form of support for Iran. But going forward, everything will depend on what Iran needs and tells us. Obviously, that's a strong message coming in from Kremlin of support for Iran. And the fact that Kremlin is hosting Foreign Minister of Iran, Syed Abbas Araghchi. He met President Putin just a while back, and these are pictures, in fact, from Kremlin, where on that famous white round table that President Putin uses to meet foreign dignitaries, he's having this confabulation with the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi, and after which he has in fact made a statement also. But before that, I believe we have a foreign guest joining us to understand what this Russian support for Iran means. So would it translate into military support as yet? Dan Pfefferman, national security analyst and intelligence officer specializing in Middle East affairs. So joining us live. Very good afternoon to you, Dan, from here. And what's your understanding or reading of this meeting that took place between President Putin and Foreign Minister Araghchi, and Russia's statement following the meeting, in which it has said that it's for Iran to decide how much help they want. We are there to help. What kind of Russian help?
At this point, I don't know how much Russia can help or is going to want to help. Iran is really in a place internationally where it has very few friends. And those friends are all not in very strong positions geopolitically, economically, socially, internally. Russia itself has been mired in the Ukraine conflict for a number of years now, and is struggling on all fronts. And so even if it could, it's hard to see Russia coming to Iran's aid right now. But more than that, Russia is not going to risk its own precarious geopolitical position to come to the aid of its so-called friend. Russia will be happy, along with China and kind of, I can imagine, the other anti-West bloc, to issue statements, to issue a lot of strong rhetoric. All of a sudden, they're going to be in favor of international treaties and international laws. But beyond the rhetorical, there's not really much they can do, and they're really not going to risk themselves to come to Iran's aid. What I can imagine that they will do, and if the Iranians will choose, is position themselves as some kind of interlocutor vis-a-vis the Americans in this regard.
All right, but you are clearly suggesting that there is no question whatsoever of any kind of military support coming in from Moscow to bail out Tehran. But the fact that Putin is hosting Araghchi, that the conversation is taking place, you mean to say that back-channel conversations could happen between the Russians and Washington also, just sort of to create a situation where both sides on the ground between Israel and Iran, they can pull back?
Right. I mean, look, anything can happen. As we've seen this last year, or this last 2 years, has been shockingly unpredictable in all accounts. There are scenarios taking place, certainly in the Middle East, that very few Middle East analysts had predicted, and those of us who did predict it were called insane. That said, if I had to be a betting man on this issue, my sense is this is a last-ditch attempt by Iran to show that it has some friends. The Russians always enjoy any kind of opportunity to speak out against the West as part of this anti-West rhetoric, anti-West bloc. But they are not in a position, nor are they going to risk themselves to come to their aid. I will say Iran was the only country internationally that gave Russia arms for its war in the Ukraine. So it is conceivable that Russia could supply Iran with some kind of arms. But beyond that, I don't see them actually joining this kind of fight. Rather, they'll continue with the rhetoric, and they'll possibly, if Iran wants, position themselves as a go-between with the Americans to try to de-escalate the situation.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan, with that perspective. And with that, in fact, we have another round of breaking news, which is that Foreign Minister Araghchi has told Putin that Iran is in legitimate has legitimate right to defend itself against American-Israeli aggression, and that they would do whatever needs to be done to preserve their sovereignty. These are inside details of the conversation that has taken place between the two sides at Kremlin. Arakchi condemning aggression by the US. That, of course, Russia also does, and Russia, in fact, has sponsored a UN motion at the UN Security Council condemning the attacks by United States that took down Iranian nuclear infrastructure. Dan, are you still there?
I'm here for another few minutes.
Okay, one quick question before I let you go, Dan. When Russia says that, and we are quoting Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson of Kremlin, that it is up to Iran to decide what kind of help they want. Apart from that, Russia has already sponsored a motion at the UN Security Council. They have very openly come out and condemned the US bombings. But beyond that, if Iran goes with a shopping list, what can Russia really offer?
It's not really clear at this point. Russia itself is again overburdened in the Ukraine war. It itself had to get drones from Iran in the last year to help fuel its war. So it's not really clear what Russia could give Iran. It's not really clear what Iran could do that it's not already doing against Israel or now against American targets. Theoretically, I could imagine maybe some kind of air defense systems. With Iran's air defense systems depleted, and of course, Iran had based itself on the S-300 and was hoping to get the S-400. But now I'm just being theoretical here. In a short time frame, my sense is Russia's support will be at the UN, will be in the international media, and then again, it could be some kind of diplomatic interlocutor to the US. Of course, Russia is going to take advantage of this to try to batter the West, to try to talk about Western American Israeli attacks on sovereign countries, about Iran's rights, inalienable rights to enrich nuclear material. I'll add one last thing, is that Russia could offer its support on a helpful level, as it did back in the JCPOA in 2015, to be the trusted third party of which Iran ships its 60% enriched material. So in that sense, Russia could actually play a constructive role should it choose to.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan, with that perspective. And with that, I believe, still a short break.